For a bit of a background on me, I'd say my hobbies are my passion. I do lots of different things, but specifically the gaming industry is where I feel most at home. From going to different events around the UK and recently around the world, which yes, I'm pretty proud of, my love and passion has developed even stronger with much more appreciation for the people involved in making video games and the joy they bring to people. As you can see for the clips going on in the background, I've always had a heavy focus on the hardware side of gaming, whether it's computers, building a PC that runs a Mac OS, repairing game consoles new or old, or my personal favourite, which was building my own arcade machine from scratch, jam-packed with some of my best games from my childhood. It's safe to say that I'm very passionate about my YouTube channel and tinkering around with various different hardware, but I have always looked and admired the game design industry, while even kind of dabbling in it myself before applying for university. Well, back in 2012 I'd done a year of level 3 game design at Trafford College where I learned some of the very basics. Back then we mainly used simple shapes and a bit of basic texturing in Unity game engine. Since then, randomly throughout the years, I've just been getting these random bursts of energy which makes me want to pursue developing these skills again. In 2020 I picked it back up again and learnt myself some of the Unreal 4 engine basics, where I did some basic scripting and having objects appear and chase the main player. I also learned some basic 3D modelling in Blender by making a donut, because donuts seem to be the hello world of modelling, but unfortunately these files are no longer anywhere to be found, so let's just skip forward to 2023. On my recent trip to Gamescom, I met an executive producer from Sumo Digital. Through conversation, he educated me on his experience in working in the game design industry, and to be honest, I was very fascinated. After such an insightful week, I finally made the life-changing decision to pursue what I've always wanted, without actually even knowing it. I looked into many different routes of joining the industry, which actually led me to stumble across a games programming apprenticeship with Sumo Digital. In order to apply for this, I had to recreate a game using nothing but C++ with the assets and a 60-page manual they provided. This was my first major introduction to coding and actually creating my first ever complete game. Naturally, there was a lot to learn before applying for this application, so I practiced through a Udemy course on how C++ works so I can understand the basics and the fundamentals before I tackle this project. The Sumo Digital C++ library was called Playbuffer, which was quite nice to use. However, because it was strictly made by Sumo Digital, finding any help for any errors in the code was almost impossible. It took way longer than I expected, but I managed to get the game complete using nothing but the manual, and I can proudly say the game actually worked. This whole process felt quite addictive, and seeing the end result being something that can be enjoyed by people really set the concrete for me to walk down the path of game design. I got a little bit ahead of myself and tried to expand on this game by creating my own game using a very similar structure using the Playbuffer library. I wanted to make a similar game to the Spider game, but based on Dragon Ball Z, where the evil villain Frieza has to fight off the Saiyans. In theory, this sounded relatively simple and everything was going great. I created my own referencing, if statements and pointers, and everything was going good. I found an image of a Frieza action figure and I manipulated it to have a cartoony looking art style. I even put some flames around it so when the character gets hit, you know the character has been hit. The background was a basic PNG image and the music was from the YouTube Studio library, although I managed to put some of Frieza's famous quotes over the background music, such as this.
Why, you insolent tree monkey, I've had enough of this. Obey me.
Everything seemed to work well until I hit a roadblock. It was time to make objects fly towards the player, and using the play buffer library, I really struggled to figure this out. To make items move randomly, the command line was random roll, as if a dice was being rolled. I got this to work on the first Spider game as the objects were coming out of the fan, but this time I was trying to get them to spawn out of the screen, which was proven to be too difficult at the very early stage, especially using a library which has very little information online. I decided to scrap this little project but still pursue learning C++ with a more popular library, so I jumped on a Udemy course again. The Udemy course that I went for was still a C++ coding course, but specifically for game development. I'm still working through this course, but with this technically being my third introductory course, I'm starting to feel way more confident about my learning potential. A lot of the terminology used in C++ no longer feels completely foreign to me. Rather than using Sumo Digital's play buffer library, I have now been using an open source library called Raylib. Raylib has a whole new set of commands, and luckily there is a lot more help accessible if needed. I'm still in the very early stages of learning this, but so far I've learned how to make a little blue circle and control it to move around and avoid the red square. As you can tell, I've been focusing on the coding side of game development. However, I really want to get down a solid foundation of all elements using different software before I decide which area is best for me. I have recently been practicing some pixel art using the Sprite software. This house was the very first thing that I made on this software. It could definitely do with some work, but I'm actually quite happy on how it turned out. I find myself pleasantly surprised, and I quite enjoyed doing this. I used this little house on how to practice getting some light into a still image, and it kind of worked out. I then decided to dive a bit deeper into this and follow some tutorials, and of course that led me to drawing donuts. The main aim of this task was mainly just to familiarise myself with the software, which definitely did help. Being able to expand the canvas with ease by a certain amount of pixels at a time is simple and such a good way to keep the image proportions correct. Using some of the software skills that I learned from the donut tutorial, I decided to make my own little character. This was the first character I've ever made, but the main purpose for me was to test out the symmetrical aspects of this software. I have always enjoyed mods on games, and like all children, my kids seem to love Minecraft. I came up with a way for them to create their own blocks without having to do anything technical themselves. So very simple, I printed out a template of a cube and let them draw whatever they wanted on it. Once they were done, I simply took a picture of it on my phone, put it on my computer, got the size correct on Photoshop, then uploaded it to Minecraft. It was pretty much really that simple using the Minecraft modding tool. On top of YouTubing and my passion for gaming, I also run a small skateboarding business. The reason I mention this is because with mods I managed to put my brand into the gaming world with a custom gear pack I created on a game called Skater XL. Considering that licensing for the merchandise belongs to me, I decided to contact Easy Day Studios to see if I can get this put into the game for consoles on their mod section, but unfortunately there was no reply, so this was left for PC only. It was quite a shame for console owners, but it is what it is. The mod pack I created featured skateboards and t-shirts from my real life store to be playable in game. Finally, I want to thank you for making it to the end of this overly informative video portfolio, and I'm going to end this with a trailer for the Skater XL mod that I made. I hope you enjoy.